This conference will now be recorded.
So you might see me just kind of dragging some magical boxes from the other side of the screen. I'm only showing one of my two monitors, but right now I have open assignment 9, which is under module 9, SketchUp elevations, no materials. So if we just read through the instructions, we can see that there's SketchUp elevations with materials PDF. You can download for printable instruction because there's just so many of them. I know sometimes we get tired of looking at the screen. We can design two spaces based off an existing floor plan, elevations, and 3Ds. So we're going to, one, be doing some exporting and importing review and exercises. That means we'll be importing two major spaces from AutoCAD floor plan into SketchUp, but students who are not in space planning, they could have used my set layouts, which I showed at the very beginning, although I don't think anyone opted to do that. I'm pretty sure everyone's created their own kitchen, their own bathroom, their own rooms. Or space planning students, you have to use your finalized floor plans to pull two rooms in. So each space belongs to its own SketchUp file, and we want to save them by a memorable name in a memorable folder. And this running of having smaller spaces instead of a full house helps us to annihilate the lag issues that some of you are already experiencing with some pretty small files. So a long time ago when I ran this course, I had everybody in the class create the boathouse from scratch so that, let's see, I'm gonna close this. Let's see if it'll work or not. It says it's a back file. Let's try this one.
This conference will now be recorded.
So opening up the big SketchUp file that I used to have people draw, it was just so many groups. And now you can see the importance of grouping and how hard it is to do just on like a smaller level. So if we come in here and we look at my bad modeling before I understood groups, there's a lot of chunks that are overlapping each other, and it just runs very, very slow. And it makes it hard when I want to get a nice, beautiful view of my dining room to get a picture of for space planning because I've got stuff in the way all the time. So to have a nice, clean, separated out view can give me the feel of the overall space without having to manage turning walls on and off and all of my scenes that the entire overall house would cause. Now, some of you will want it because when you have an open concept like that, it's hard to get rid of certain pieces of it and have it feel continuous. You could also add like a cut line to the side of your elevation that lets it end and tells people that you know it's odd that you're in an open concept, but you're letting it run out of space. So just putting a cut line, I don't know if that means anything to any of you, but if you have an elevation and you only wanted to draw a portion in here of this section drawing instead of the whole thing, I could come through with a symbol that looks like this, and that would let people know, okay, I'm only going to draw from here to here. I know the wall clearly runs onward into this other space. So there's some things we can do on the note side that helps us understand why we're picking a section for elevation or 3D modeling, but not including all of the rest of that open concept. All right, so I'm going to actually close out of this big model because it does take up a lot of thought for my SketchUp. And I am going to start one of the smaller drawings. So I have Ashley's, just like a basic concept, pulled up on my screen. And we could pull any number of things. So she has a bedroom that she's built off this center portion in here. That might be what she wants to showcase. Maybe it's a guest bedroom, or possibly this bathroom up here, or a kitchen. So let's just start with this master or guest bathroom, sorry. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. So I want to use my selection tool and copy only what I really need. Now, I don't need all the walls, and I certainly know that it would be smarter for me to get rid of the hatching. So the hatching is preventing me from getting just the basic wall framing that I need. If I go in here and let's see, drywall hatch, so I could type in D and it takes me closer to there, turn that off. And even some of this hatching, and since it's not going to hurt her file for me to do it, I'm just going to delete it out. And then I'm going to do my copy. So get rid of all the extraneous stuff, including hatching and anything that's not just basic walls. I can do a clipboard copy up here in the upper right-hand corner of my screen. And then I can open up a new drawing. Now, it's been a while since we had to open up a new drawing, although some of you had to save some files down. So remember, we want to use our architectural imperial in our start menu. If we come to the start and we scroll all the way down to the bottom, we see the architectural imperial DWT. We come into the model space, and that signifies to us that we're going to be in feet and inches, and it'll be easily transferable into our SketchUp program. We'll come up to the upper right-hand corner again and grab our paste since I had it in the clipboard. And here's the room I'll be working with. Now this is this door side. She could choose to do her 3D and show the door and then the closets on this wall and the space over here, but we're gonna cut out one wall of this space. Just like in theater, when you're looking at something on a stage, they're not gonna have all four walls because we can't get any idea of what's happening inside, but we want as many walls as we can get a feel of. We could also say, okay, this is kind of interesting. What would that look like in a 3D view? And what could she do with this added space and take it from the door wall? Whatever we choose, we're going to delete out the extra portions of wall from one or the other side. So to keep it pretty simple, I'll let Ashley do the crazier work with figuring that wall out at a normal time. But I'm just going to come in here, make sure my O snaps are on so I can continue a wall. Doesn't really matter what color the walls are. I'm pretty sure they're always going to come in black and CAD, and either way we're going to build on top of them, so it doesn't matter. But I've got enough deleted. I might end up deleting more. I certainly don't need these doors because it's only what's interior to the room. So I could get rid of some of this closet information and some of the stuff on the outside here because this is going to end up just being a thickness of wall. I don't need to know anything about the outside of that front entryway portion. And then I know I have a column. This is about a good amount of information. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It's just good enough. So I'm going to save this as guest room to my desktop. Yours is going to go to your folder where you save everything else. And you're keeping it all nice and organized. So I'll save guest room. And I've got a 2018 AutoCAD drawing format. We said we wanted to save it down so we don't have any problems. So I'll just do what you would encounter and I'll save it. That just has to do with they've already cranked out 2019, I've heard, for SketchUp, but that doesn't mean that CAD has aligned with them. They're separate providers and SketchUp just chooses to use the software. So that's why we sometimes have to save backwards until it all catches up because they keep releasing each year. So I'll save it. And then I can go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So Kenzie, when I was going to transfer or import my CAD into my SketchUp, it like wasn't working at all. And I watched your video and everything, and I finally got it imported, but I don't know if it imported wrong or if you'll be able to view it or not, because it was different from the video you put on YouTube.
So what did you do that was different?
I had to save it as a different type of file.
So it didn't work for you to save it down to a 2013 format? What did you save it as?
I can go back and look. Give me just 1 minute.
So while you're doing that, I'm going to just go to File Import in my SketchUp. And I don't really care which one. It could be architectural or not. We said one has a blue background. I usually like the gray background. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to change the file formatting to include AutoCAD. Did you do that step, Kenzie? Did you have it correct on the side over here so that it matched up? So when you went to find the AutoCAD format, it was okay because it
Yeah.
automatically defaults to 3ds. Okay. So if I go to AutoCAD and then I'm going to go to guest room and import, close. Now I've never imported anything at the school. In fact, I've never opened SketchUp 2018. So at least I know it does work here to do it that way. What kind of file was it, Kenzie?
I'm still trying to find it.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
You work on it, no problem. All right, so we've got enough information. You're like, some of this is review. Yes, yay, we get some review items. So we know things like if I have openings, I just draw a wall and later I cut out the openings. I'm going to draw right through them. I have some indication of where they are that I could give some guidelines, but I don't leave holes. So what that is in a shorter version is I do not do this and then do this over here, because if I pull my walls up, that gives me just a monolithic opening. Instead, I want to have one continuous wall that I cut my door out of. So I will just undo that. And even more than that, start from scratch. So we said, and some of us experience different ways. Right now, mine is in an entire group. If I come in the group, I can get it down to the line level. These can be a little bit messier than what you had for your previous assignment. You do always want to be organizing thing in a layer structure. So if you want to keep this under drawing, then you might call it something like that too. So if I scroll down over in my default tray and I look at the layers that came in, we said we want to clean out as much junk as possible. So like a wall possibly could be deleted unless that's the underlayer itself. So if it toggles off, let's put this on 0 and then toggle off. Will it take any of my information? Just the column. Okay, that's not necessary, but rooms will. So it brought in the layer from CAD. That's not always the case. Sometimes it doesn't bring in the perfect name, so that's good. So I can get rid of a wall, doesn't matter. We'll delete the contents, not just move it. And then for rooms, I might say that's just not an appropriate name. I'm going to say underdrawing and get rid of it. You could say whatever you want that signifies to you this is just our basic sketch that we're going to build off of. So I could keep this by itself where I toggle it on and off and not go into the group and build on top. It should still be able to find some pig points for me to create walls off of. I could start as far back or over as I want to, and then I could start building up. So if I pull up my wall and I say it's pretty standard to be about 8 foot, 9 foot. Now, the only problem with me just going, oh, this is pretty standard, is you also have to be thinking about your ceiling in plan. And really importantly, for this space, we can see that if we pull our line across, we get the highest peak of the building coming right through this room. So we know that it's a really interesting room, right? Because the walls are taller than a standard room on the side. So that room would be as big as it is with the peak off to this side. So we could say, let's see how far in from here, about 4 foot 10 inches. And then these walls in here could be any height that you wanted to and then connect them up. But if you did it earlier, you'd have like this weird space to the side. So if I want to check it in here first, I could say, okay, I want to bring it really up to whatever this height is in here, from here to here, in order for it to connect with the true ceiling. So for her, that would mean about 18 foot 6. And I'm just going to round it off because no one's ever going to know, and that's specific enough. So 18 foot 6 on either side, and the top part, when we say 4 foot 10 in, is that 20 foot. So This is going to be fun. If I bring my wall up, the reality of the wall, if I undo my push-pull, is that here I have 18 foot 6 inches. And this is where I love starting to bring the reality of the three-dimensionality that's going on in the space. Doesn't mean it's wrong. And we'll talk about what she can do to fix this, or maybe it's just a really super tall room, right? So on this side over here, when we think about the flat edge is even harder. And come back into our big drawing and we'd say it ends early. So if we wanted it to flatten up, if we give it, we can just get it drawn by adding that peak in there and then adding the ceiling in. Okay, so come back in here and I could say, I'm going to give myself just a fake wall on this side again. I'm going to pretend that I had it in. And she might need to, for this middle portion, actually keep all the walls in to get an idea of how to build the roof so she can connect it on the other side. And then let's see if I pull that up. Now, I can still group things even though, like if I click off over here and I do this, it's not messy enough yet where I can't go, oh, I have this full group and I can make that a wall. So whatever wall you want to call this, usually you want to base the orientation off of your plan. So if you're going to call this north up here, and that's north, which it isn't really for space planning people, it's whatever it says in the book. There's a little compass and it tells you, oh, this is actually south for you. But if I want this to be my north wall, because I'm basing it off of my user face over here, then I could say, okay, this is the north wall. I'm going to make it a group and I'm going to create a layer. So I don't want to, I'm pretty good at going back and creating it as I go without saying anything. I want to do it in best practice, north wall, which would mean this guy that I started over here, he would be my south wall. And you can raise walls after the fact or during, but not if you have so many things going on at once. 18 foot, we'll say 6 inches too on the same side is about right. Except for there's a change in slope because the peak isn't perfectly centered with her room. So we said if we go back into our AutoCAD and we measure it down to here, we get 4 foot 10. If we come in here and we draw out 4 foot 10, or even just measure and give ourselves a guide, we'll say 4 foot 10 inches. We'll say it's right here. Okay, so you can just pull this piece over and I can draw a line and then a rectangle to connect it over here. And I can 1, 2, 3, that's a triple click, right click, make it a group. And if I come in here, I can then push pull that up. And we could say, this is really interesting. I'm going to pull it to this height, see the best way to draw it. Some of this is just like learning how to draw an elevation based off of our 3D too. So we've got the elevation of the 410 coming up 20. So if I come up 20 from this point at the 410, that's where it's highest, 20 foot, I know really I've got this shape in here that's a triangle. So I can go from here to here to here to here, and I can push pull that back and I get the finalized shape of this here, which is going to be that wall on that side. Then we know whatever it is on the other side is it starts to drop down as it goes towards the other wall over here. So we could connect in our points, and I want to say that's in the right space because the green, yep, the green line is on. And we want to, now notice, see what I found out? I was up here and I came over here. It has to be this back part because I'm going to push pull the piece forward like I just did a second ago. So I can then push pull this back towards this. And you can create tons of push-pull shapes. Doesn't have to be just a rectangle as you're seeing. You can cut into space. You could put a circle on this and push-pull a circle out of it. And then I'm going to push-pull this part down to complete out my wall there. And so now I'm getting the idea of, oh, that's what the roof line looks like. That's how high her walls are. And then if I don't want to see this, but I want to keep it, I could right click and hide it. And now I'm getting more of what I want to see in my 3D. Maybe this corner, maybe the other corner, but a smaller portion of my room. You can always right click and hide any ugly lines, hopefully without it erasing any shapes. So if I get into the groups in here a little bit deeper, I could say if I don't want this deep darkness at the corner, I can erase that out so it gets that realistic connection of just the white meeting the gray in there. You've got to find your, like this is this 20-foot line. So if I hide it correctly, I should get it hidden. And then this is its own thing because it's the other wall. So I can hide those lines too. But because there's also this piece, it's a number of things to hide. So that's how we clean up any ugly things. And we could have done this as one solid piece too. But we can hide a lot of the background stuff, what's going on. And you don't have to clean up the backside. You only need to make sure that what you're showing in this view to clients is beautiful. So it's all about, you know, smoke and mirrors to some extent and using the software without working extra hard. So now I've got the idea of the roof line on this side, and then we know it would be the same on the other side. So what I could do is take these elements on this side that make up this wall, and I could make them a group, and then I could copy them, edit, copy. I'm going to edit and paste it in place because I know where it is. So I'm going to type paste in place. That means it's on top of itself. And then I'm going to move it about a bottom corner so that I know it's going to stay on the ground in alignment, and I'm going to move it into the place of these lines that she has on the other side to get the exact identical wall on that other side. So now I have some hiding to do on the interior of this wall, which is fine. And I just right click to do all of that and hide until it's nice and pretty. But that just gives you the idea of like really quick processes without reinventing the wheel. I can do a quick copy just like I would in CAD. Okay, so I have all of these, but she has some closets that jut out into this space. So I need to build a wall going across in here. Now that's interesting too, because if you imagine if this was any drywall in your house where the closet is, this line is again matched to make up the next wall in front of it so that there's always a continuous roof line on either side. So I'd have to, in fact, copy it again. I'm going to edit, paste it in place, and I'm going to move it over in front in here, okay? And then I could start cutting out my openings. So we know how to cut out the openings based on your homework. I don't want to spend too much time, but this is how you should approach it. And the most important thing is that you're also considering whatever your strange roof line is because the house is odd. If you need help with that, we can set up a meeting because I think it's one of the harder things to get. I work as an artist all day teaching about how to draw and see in space, so it's easier for me. Now let's see if we could connect. We could think, I want to get a ceiling eventually. How does that happen? Can I make that happen? So it should be as easy as finding points on the same axis, the top axis, the side, and the base, and connecting them. And we'd, of course, want to make that our own thing. So the reason we want a ceiling is because we could have cool elements like a roof hanging, a light hanging off of it, like a pendant light. We might be able to, once we get the true height of the ceiling, say, wow, that is tall. Should I create attic space where I put a ground in here that's not shown? And then that means I have to create a note for it later in my documents. Or should I add some type of beam that's going to make up for all of this crazy space in here, and just add 3 of these guys going across, and 1, 2, 3, and then a lighting element down inside of them, and that helps to fill this space for me. So we want to be thinking of the full space, not just a box, because nothing in this house is just a box. I'm going to go ahead and check my chat really quick on the other screen. Okay.
I found what file it was.
Yeah, what was it?
It's the AutoCAD R12/LT2DXF.
That's fine. I mean, as long as it's still an AutoCAD model and it just comes in as lines, as we can go back and forth. What I'm interested to see is that your exporting works back into AutoCAD. So if that works, then it's fine. I mean, probably 2 ways to skin a cat, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. We got this stuff, but let me pull up my new notes for this week on the other screen because I want to make sure I don't go too far off script. It's too fun to draw, so. All right, so what's great about SketchUp? SketchUp's open to everyone. That means I can download models and I can upload models. What's bad about SketchUp is open to everyone, which means you can upload models and Susie can upload models and you might not know anything and they're just junk, okay? So you never know what you're gonna get. You should be pretty smart about opening and using models, not because they're gonna have viruses in them, but because sometimes models are more work than they're worth, even some really lovely models. And we want models that give us the best efficiency and usability and match our presentations. So also think about SketchUp modeling as intellectual property. So when we get into the kitchen later on tonight, if we have time, it's great that we can come in here and say, here's a full kitchen ready to go. But that is Jordan D. Castillo's kitchen that he's put together, or it could be just the craft-made example kitchen. And it's not okay, nor would it work because you have to come up with your own floor plan, to just copy and paste 90% of one of those things into your plan. That's someone's intellectual property and it should be modified as such. So we want to treat it just like a written document in plagiarism. And if I can trace it back, like if I can easily look at it and go, nope, that's a full model, then it would be treated that way in a final presentation. That's not to say you couldn't use this chunk and modify the handles and the color and then pick a different appliance and it would work out for you. But you should never just be using what they have. It should be your design. So I want a bed because I'm doing a guest room. Let's say we always want to be really specific. And this is the point in the class where everyone goes, oh, I wish you would have told me that a week ago when Professor King was having me finalize my furniture plan, but we just can't because of the speed of the AutoCAD. What I'll do that is different than most people in life is I believe in working smarter, not harder, is what all my other students hear me say. And that means if I get a project and I had my client spec first and I decide my type of design will be modern, and so I say I want a modern tufted bed. And I start to look at images here, then I usually, when I was a student, would go into here before I finalized my specification and say, yeah, I kind of like this one. I kind of like this one. But then I'd go, okay, well, what do we got in here? Modern tufted bed. Now, furniture is different than copying a kitchen because it's just a furniture piece. And I go, ooh, these look very much like some of the things that I'm seeing on here, except this one's just like a traditional tuft more than a square tuft in here. And then I say, I got some wings on here. This one looks the same, except it doesn't have the inner tufting. So I tried to work from, could I find good furniture models that were realistic to what my client would want, where I didn't have to reinvent the wheel and hand draw 3D models. So I could say, I want this one, and this one's very similar to that. So I'm going to download that. Yes, directly into my model. Now, one thing I noticed in your homework as I've been reviewing it is I'm pretty sure Professor King brought it up, and I brought it up to some of you, is you're trusting models too much. So you should measure everything after you bring it in and say, I looked up my queen size bed size in my drafting book, and this bed represents the queen size drafting size, because Susie Q from down the street could have put in a model that was meant to be a cat bed, and it comes in at 3 foot wide by 2 foot, and hopefully it'd be a red flag. But some of these things could just be off by a foot, and it makes all the difference in the world. So it's your responsibility to scale and size a model correctly based off of your specification, and never ever trust the SketchUp people. So it looks like a really clean model. There's not much I'd have to do to this bed except change its colors regardless. So I could go ahead and I'm going to move my bed up against the wall. Now, the great thing about you and SketchUp, in over 3 years, these models used to come in the sky, and then you would hope you got them on the ground, and it was really hard to maneuver. But what we know is you can see the blue dashing right now. That's perfectly straight up. And if I hit escape and I get it back on the ground like it came in, which is it usually will, I can pull it over. I see the red, and that's perfectly going to the left and the right. So if we pay close attention to our dashing, we know that the bed isn't going to just be floating around. You should always double check to make sure that it's actually sitting on the ground. And we can do that by coming into our views, so camera, standard view, front, and then turning on our parallel projection, which forces it to be in a realistic elevation. So if the elevation in fact is on the ground for this bed, it'll be riding this red line, riding like riding a horse. It'll be right on the edge of it. It could have been an inch or a foot or something above, and we'll notice that in our elevation. I can see that it's not going through the wall. That's another thing you could get deducted points on in my class. If this is just shoved randomly into the wall and it looks nice on the outside, but not in an elevation format. We want it to be both in elevation and in three-dimensional view how it should be. And parallel projection lets us check the elevation. I'm going to undo that because when I'm in 3D mode, it's messy to have parallel projection on. It changes the perspective to be an obscure one. So I've got my nice bed. It's sad that our door is in the center. It makes it a little bit hard. I don't know. I would off-center it a little bit so I had more room for more furniture, but maybe I could just bring in a side table, end table. And I didn't have anything in mind for this because my client didn't let me know. Probably modern as well to match unless I'm doing eclectic. So I could say Danish modern. You'll find that, and what I'm getting at is the warehouse, the more specific you are, the happier you will be that you're finding a true match for something. So if you've already picked out some great furniture from a source, try using keywords that you would use in your original image. That sounds totally normal, but a lot of people go in here and they're like bed or fluffy bed. And you want to know your furniture, which is why we do history of interiors, because if I want a Danish modern, it's different than just plain modern, is different than looking at, oh man, so many things. Queen Anne foot, so many things. So I've got my end table modern. I love these. That's exactly what my client wants. Now, people who aren't in space planning, this is the fun part because you get to put whatever you want in here and no one's going to check your specifications and no one cares. And so you got to make as many fun things as you want and paint them whatever colors you want. And that's exciting. So I'm going to rotate him so that I get the long end going this way mostly. And I'm going to move him using the move tool. And you're thinking, you're not covering the tools very much. No, I'm not. But I'm giving you real basics. And a lot more of you have been messaging me about homework. And the reality is that SketchUp is messier than CAD. I can't from a screenshot or much from a text help you because there's 100 things that could have gone wrong. You might not have grouped it. You might have hidden something. You don't have a layer turned on. And it's just so much more random. So we're going to have to start making real meetings with each other. to figure out some of these things, I have a feeling. There's my end table. I could add a lamp. So you get it. Some things are just simple. Search well, use your model, upload it, make sure it's on the ground. You can double check that you're getting things in the right place, always clicking to axes instead of just, woo, that's crazy. We don't do that. And it should all work out. You're like, yes, right, Mrs. Green. All right, so if we come up to our model, there are some things that are a little more helpful for us called dynamic components. So a lot of you are probably using craft-made products, right? And craft-made and Kohler and all those bigger brands have built-in intelligent thought to their components. So if I say craft-made cabinet, and we'll give it a space because it just doesn't like that. And it could give me a full kitchen, but let's get down to the brass tacks, right? Shall we? We come down here and we say, okay, here's one, base pots and pans. Now, if you were to start from Kohler's website and you picked a certain type of cabinet, they usually have the option to download the SketchUp file, or they have the name of it and the model that you could search in the warehouse and find the model that you're using. So I'm going to download it. Yes. And I'm just going to plop here. I'm going to go back out and check really quick in the warehouse. It should pull up the last file. I'm going to maximize this screen. Let's read a little bit. I said, let's be concerned about what we're getting into. Base pots and pans, storage 4 drawers. Putnam maple willow paint, blah, 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 blah. Configurable in sizes. It has a component option. That's good to know. Use the interact tool to open the drawers and the doors. Tools interact. And then I can see different things about the materials, how many polygons, and the size of this file. You want it, I mean, we can't help how big it is if we really want to bring it in, but that will cause some of the lagging issues if it's too big. So I can see that it's a dynamic component. What does that mean? Well, right now, if I take my measuring tape and I go from here to here, I read down there quickly, it said 2'5" ish. But if I go onto my component and I right click with it activated, dynamic components, component options, I can see that there's different sizes of availability for me to change my cabinet to. And instead of scaling it, which can be very messy, and I'll show you why you never scale a dynamic thing in a minute here, I can just choose, oh, no, I don't want it to be 30 foot or 30 inches. I want it to be 36. It said 2'6", so 30 inches. Now it's 36 inches, 3 foot. And then the depth doesn't change. So what that tells me is this is a kitchen cabinet. I can't use it in the bathroom because it's 24 inches deep and I can't modify the depth. And then the hardware is aluminum integrated pool. I can't change that and I can't change the height. So I've used all of its dynamic properties and I can apply them. And it automatically stretches the handles, the inner workings of each of the facings of the drawers. And that's amazing, just the usability of that product. So we don't have to scale it. Now, what happens if I scale it? We have a scale tool, just like we have in CAD, and with it selected, I'm going to try and scale it. So if I start pulling it this way, nope, you can't scale me, it says. That's no good. So a dynamic component wants to do the work for you and doesn't want you to allow anything to break off because it's so smart. And when you start breaking it off, if you ever figure out a way to break it off, it'll get really messy and things will pop off to the left side. If you ever copy a dynamic input and you change it, then it'll multiply. It's just not pretty. These are the kinds of things you want to take notes on, just saying. You might have a notebook out because just like in a normal class, there's a lot of information to keep track of, and it's good to keep in a notebook. All right, so dynamic input, that's a good one for my kitchen especially. That's where you're going to find it the most. Okay, so you've got importing into this file. You know how to cut out openings. You know how to bring in basic furniture. Let's look at another room. We know how we think about our ceiling. So I could save this as a SketchUp file to the folder I want it to be. We'll call it guest room 2. So it lines up with my AutoCAD folder. We'll go down onto our desktop and save. Okay. So, spec instead of modifying. I'm reading my notes just to make sure I don't run over. Placing objects, set camera. Okay. So I'm going to close out of this one. We're going to repeat the process, speeding it up. So we did this guest room. We could do a kitchen, but that's a lot of time spent. She has a little bathroom right here. I said I need to turn off any exterior hatching, ignore my deletion of it. You don't want to do that. I turned it off, let's say. And then I'm going to copy any lines that are relevant to my bathroom. I could control click or add each of these lines by themselves or group click them like that. I missed little pieces in here. Make sure you get everything you do want. And then I'm going to copy it using my clipboard. I'm going to go to the Start tab, New Drawing, scroll all the way down, Architectural Imperial, Model, Paste. I'm going to delete out what I don't want. We're going to say, I don't have her toilet or anything on. I'm just going to kind of keep these walls that we're looking in from, let's say this wall. So we get a good view of this vanity here. And keep that guy because it gives me the outside wall. All I need to know is like this L, this door over here, and done. So I'm going to save this as a 2013 drawing file. I'm going to name it Small Bath. Desktop, save. I'm going to close these guys. All right, small bathroom is there. I'm going to go back into my SketchUp. And I'm going to import CAD files right here, DWD, DXF. And I'm going to choose small bathroom, import, close. It failed. This is fun. I'll try and see why. Did I save it down? No, I didn't. And you guys didn't even say anything. You guys have to stay on top of it just like I do. All right, we're going to open small bathroom. And we'll do a save as 2013. And I'll make sure I know I don't have the copy. Now it should work for me. Yay. Okay. So it's the same process. Sometimes you get an easy room. We know we have to care about the ceiling. I'm not going to do it because I'm just going to keep talking about scaling of product. And I am going to want to show a vanity more than I want to show anything else. So if I pull this wall up, we say we know something's going to be pretty high over there. We'll get our walls up. And this gives me a good idea of the feel of the space. Maybe she has a toilet over here and a shower. We don't know. Now, you could group these as north and south wall. If you know you don't have to modify much and you get them set and they are simple, which most of them won't be, you can make a full group and just make it walls. So I'm looking for groupings that are logical. I'm not trying to force you to do exactly the groupings that I do in any given recording now that we're into the three-dimensional. When we get back into CAD, I will be. So I could say make a group, and I could always go and add another layer and call it general walls, whatever you want. And I can make sure that I put it on general walls up here. Okay. So now I'm going to go to my CAD and I'm going to say double vanity. And here's a nice vanity that looks very similar to her plan's vanity. Let's go ahead and use it. Let's learn about it. A basic vanity with 2 sinks, all part taken from other designers' vanity double sink bathroom. Well, it doesn't say it's dynamic, so I shouldn't be expecting it to change size. I'll download it. Did we get so lucky as it to be the exact size that it needs to be, thus ruining the model that I need it to be? All right, so let's move it over. We'll move it over. Nope, it's not the right size. Look at it. It overhangs on this side. So it's really important that your models are accurate to your CAD blocks, which are hopefully accurate as well. So hers is a longer vanity here, and we need to scale this item. Now, if I do the right click and I do dynamic components, component options, it'll just tell me there's no options available. So I know it's normal scaling that I have to do. So how do I scale an object when it's not going to scale itself in a fancy way? I have to have guidelines to snap to. And these objects, they scale like the images in AutoCAD. It's a ratio or fractional. It's not something where I can take this and say 6 inches when I type that, and then it goes 6 inches over. It'd be really nice if it did. Instead, I had to say, bring this to this line. Now notice when I do that, it stretches and skews things, and different things will do different things. If I came out at an angle, it said it's uniformly scaling it. That means everything is changing in the same ratio. So the sink's getting smaller as the doors are getting smaller. Nothing's going to change. Not just the sink's getting bigger and the doors staying the same size. The best one to do, although it's going to stretch our sinks, is probably the middle point, but it might be okay because in this instance, the vanity size, the overall vanity size, would kind of require a bigger sink for it to look good and not have too much extra space on top. So if I wanted to have this snap to the size of the object, I'd have to pick the bottom edge. So oh, well, I have to pick the object edge. Let me be clear, I don't want to be ambiguous. So notice that the box around the object is what's snapping to this point. So it's just a little bit shy. Let's find out what that nominal measurement is from here to here. So it's 1 15/16. So if I take my tool and I want to scale it again, and I go like this, and I say 1 15/16. Whoa! Hold on, let me see if it'll work. Undo scale. I think it's because I put the space. 1 15/16. Hold on. See if I can't get it to work. Pull it out. Let me zoom out a little bit. Being finicky. 1 15/16. It doesn't want to do it. It wants to scale the whole thing. Well, that works. So I just had to double do it. So if it comes in with a box that's smaller than itself, in order to scale it, you've got to first scale it to the box and then scale it again. But you won't be able to click it on the initial scale. That's a strange new deal. What about in the front? So we can say always, almost always, the most relative scale where it's not going to change much except stretch the top, but it keeps everything stretching in a believable way is the perfectly centered left to right, as opposed to this, which it moves everything at the same size but makes it all too big or too small. I want to see if I can get it front to back. So that's the center point here. And I want to see if I can't get it to snap on the edge. So it still has a little bit of thickness to it. So let's snap it to the edge first and then snap it again to the edge. This might be change in 2018. It's a good example. I mean, any problems I have are good examples. So that's close. This side is attached, but this side is just shy of its object. But you can see how we could scale it up, and it's different than having that nice dynamic input. And now you see why dynamic is good, because we are stretching the face of the cabinets here in order to make it work out. Now the reality would be they must have cabinet doors this big, or they have more than what is showing on plan if it's going to span this amount of space. So I filled the object. I also feel like when I brought this object in, I just kind of slapped him up against the wall. So if I move him and pull him forward there, that will get it to line up with the front of this. But what does that look like in my view this way? So all I did was I just moved it this way. What does that look like? We can see it's not right at ground level. I can double check that, and it's hard to tell in that three-dimensional view. So I go camera, standard view, front, camera, parallel projection, and I notice it needs to be moved up, and then it needs to be moved over until it's not in the way of the wall. So it should meet up right at that edge point there. And then if I rotate, I can see that it's nice and snapped into alignment with these things. So part of it is scaling the object. See how the perspective gets weird? We have to change it back to be perspective instead of parallel projection. And part of it is scaling the object. And we're okay as long as the scaling doesn't get rid of the reality of the object in an unbelievable way. So I'm going to move him. Now, because he's not dynamic, we're able to scale him for one. We're also able to look at the pieces they put together. So a really good modeler would have built this in such a way that when I get into the group, I get into this group, and the top is its own group. So like these pieces would be all connected and grouped, right? But they're not. So if I go to move just the top, it might take other things that I don't want to go with it, or the handles get left behind because of these odd groupings that they have going on. Or if I go to move just a door, it'll stretch everything instead of being me able to take off that front door. If I get into a better grouping, nope, it's still sticky like that. So this is what I'm saying about having good models and bad models. If I knew that I loved everything about this except for the doors, it then makes it this big long process of deleting out pieces. And you're like, that's not so bad, and maybe that's okay with you. But then you'd have to create your own door. So sometimes we get what we want and we modify it. And if at the end of the day, the worst part of this was the front paneling part, I could create my own door from scratch by measuring the distance from the top to the bottom here and saying it's about 2 3/8. And then I could come out of my group and I could do camera, standard view, top. If I'm ever going to create something from scratch, it's nice to have this top view. We know that we're right on ground level. And we could say 2 foot 3/8 inches. And I could come over. I'm going to measure the width-ish. We'll say from here to here, 1 foot 8 3/8 inches. So I could draw over 1 foot 8 3/8 inches. And then down 2 foot 3/8 inches and over. Okay, so I'd get a panel, and then I could make it three-dimensional by the thickness of the panel. We'll say 3/8 inches. That seems to be a popular one. And then I could make it a group. So I do 1, 2, 3, right click, make it a group. And then I could rotate it up 90 degrees. Then I could rotate it around. About my green axis, and then move it into place. to be covering my door and scale it and so on and so forth and do whatever I want to it. So we can always modify something, which is fine if you don't mind putting in the work. We could also modify this if we're like, I just wanted a flat panel and this has too much decorative element to it. Then we don't have to delete everything. We could just slowly take out lines. So I'm left clicking, hitting delete with my keyboard, left clicking, hitting delete with my keyboard until I have that clean panel. And then I could add a handle to it. So I could say this was so close to what I wanted, but it just had too decorative of a door. I could get out of it and I could go back into my warehouse and then say vertical handle, because I don't even want to have to rotate it. And I could pick this ugly handle and download it. Yes. And put it in. It didn't come in vertically, which is hilarious. So I could rotate it like this. Let's see. It's the easiest rotation if we can grab it. It's a round object, so it doesn't want to be grabbed by its side. So we'll have to rotate it down first and then rotate it this way next. But you can see how we can easily change models to be like the models we have as long as they're similar in pieces. 2 sinks, 2 doors, 2 false fronts, da 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 da. So I could move this over, and if I have a good handle, I could even scale the handle because this handle just feels so dinky for what I've got going on. Now, here's a good instance of what not to scale. If I scale like this, it's weird. If I scale about the center point down, that does really nice, clean vertical scaling. So those center points are good for vertical and horizontal scaling accurately. So there I've got a nice handle. So you can see how it's pretty easy to make a really nice space. There's all types of manufacturers that you should probably already have in your specification. For instance, Kohler has a vanity collection and the real toilets in the real models that you can get from their website. So if you go on a Kohler site, they link back up to SketchUp as well, and you could find the right model that you've already specified and the right sink model that you've specified. So I'm just going to grab one, download it. This one wasn't created by Kohler, I can tell, because it says it belongs to GDog or whoever it is. Again, you should be checking the size of these things, but for the most part, they're good. Oh, perfect. So see how this came in? Yuck, yuck. That came in and it's below the ground. That's not where my toilet should go. Now, there's 2 ways to go about this. I could do camera, standard view, front, camera, parallel projection, and I can move it up once I get it in the general area that I want it to be and make sure it's level with the ground. Then I can orbit, which I'm holding my left click on my mouse while I orbit. And there, yeah, that's great. I love it. Or if it was going to come in funny, if I want to be sure it's going to come in on the ground, I can do camera, standard view top, and I can turn off my parallel projection. That just helps me see things. But as long as I'm in camera, standard view top, when I bring my toilet in, now don't let me be a liar, and download, yes, into the model, and place it. And then I'm going to orbit. Oh, it is. This means the guy set the pick point to be below the ground for some reason. All right. Well, for most furniture, if you have this kind of problem with bad models, which is great that we chose a bad model, then you can just get into the top view. So I still suggest this, even though it didn't work with his toilet since he had it planned to go lower than that. If you camera standard view top and you bring furniture in, it's more likely to come in on the floor level than if you're in space like this. It'll find itself in space faster. All right, I am going to pause our recording really quick. It feels very disjointed, but it's just because it's a lot of random design information.
This conference will now be recorded.
We'll pull it up. Assignment 9. So we imported 2 major spaces from CAD. We started working on them. Space planning, you use your finalized floor plan 2 rooms. Try to use rooms you don't have a lot of elevations of or a different view than what your elevation is showing, because you want this work to be useful work, space planning people, not just redundancy. So when you put it into your final project, the PowerPoint, you don't have a full view into the kitchen that's 3D, that's the same and identical to your elevation. You can show us a fully different space or a better perspective from a different angle, and it's more meaningful that way. We saved our SketchUp files into their own files. Our layer management, we've been working with that as we went. It says, think about ceiling details, flooring, and accessories. I would say for the bathrooms, I said this in the notes on your floor plans, but especially in the model, a completed model would have a mirror, it would have a floor to it, maybe not a painted floor with material on it yet, but it'd have a floor, it'd have a mirror, it'd have a toilet holder, toilet paper holder, it'd have a towel bar, it'd have a shower, it would have a trash can that's really cute, and it would have magazines and anything that makes it look lived in. It would have wall decor. So don't be basic. Basic isn't good enough. You want this work to be adding time. In the future, you're going to have to do 2D, two perspectives for space planning. If you can do that now, then you'll be ahead of the game. So make them very good. And on your floor plans, you should have all of those things I mentioned too, the thickness of a mirror, the full towel bar, the toilet paper, the trash can, because it feels lived in instead of empty. All right. JPEG elevation. Let's look back at this. We've got all our layer management, create walls, brief review, SketchUp 3D warehouse, objects brought in, adjusting, scaling, and measuring, or dynamic objects, working smarter, not harder. Which comes first? I said my spec comes before, or actually my spec comes after my warehouse. I like to look in the warehouse and then find furniture that matches, or look at really like well-known manufacturers like Kohler and Craftmade, and then go look at the specs because I can see them in 3D first. Bring in all the furniture to complete the space. Don't worry about colors and materials. We can add those later. Make objects a believable size. If your space planning objects will match the size given in your specifications. Rotate your views, creating elevations. We have to create one true elevation of one of your 2 spaces. Make sure parallel projection is on. It is, but off for 3D views. Export 1 quantity JPEG and 1 quantity CAD drawing. This drawing must be copied and pasted into your master drawing, and create a scene to make orienting back to the elevation easier. So at this point, I'm going to open this up and see if this is a little cleaner cut version. Okay, so it's not much different. Let me elaborate on what I'm saying there and maybe type in it in real time now that I have the perspective of a year on this one. So looking at what to do, let's edit this. Going down, finish off the exterior is going to be 15 points. That's your office drawing. Rotating views and creating elevation, this is 30 points. So it's create one true elevation of 2 spaces. That's 10 points. It's one task. And it's a JPEG. So let's say one true JPEG elevation of your 2 spaces. That's 10 points. And make sure that the parallel projection is on for that. And we'll just end that there. Okay. Then it says export the JPEG and 1 quantity AutoCAD drawing. So we don't need this. Then your next task is export 1 quantity AutoCAD drawing. This drawing must be copied and pasted into your master drawing. And that's worth 10 points. And then the third that's worth 10 points is creating the scene. 3, create a scene, which we haven't covered yet. So now let's cover it in real time. So the one creative JPEG drawing is really easy. Once we have this figured out, and let's say I've got all my stuff in, it's not just as simple as this. We said we have to find out the right view, which right now this is front. So I want to say this is the east camera view, standard view. So that would be top, front, left, right. I want to say right. Okay. So it's a right view. My camera's in parallel projection, which makes it into a true elevation. Now you would do this when it was finished. You want to make sure that you're fully cropped in so you get a nice clean view of it. And then for your presentations, you would crop off all this extra stuff to put it in your PowerPoint. So once I have it as trimmed as I can get it without deleting any information from the screen, I'm going to go to File, Export, 2D Graphic. And I'm going to call this Elevation of Small Bath. And it would go where everything else is going, which unfortunately for me is to the desktop. Now, when I minimize my screen, I see I have a JPEG, invalid value refuge, maybe. Let me see why it doesn't like it. File, export, JPEG. Let's call it small bath, nothing fancy. JPEG, export. 15 desktop. Can someone try it on your end? Anyone have SketchUp open? I want to make sure we don't all have this problem. Invalid value registry. Let me save it to a folder and see if it's any different. File, export, 2D graphic, JPEG. If they're showing up here, let me put it in my documents. It might be because I'm a user on this computer, which is why I'm assuming it'll still work for you, but I might not be able to show it. So I'll export it there just as an untitled. I'll go into my pictures. Yeah, I think it has to do with my user ability on this computer. So I'm going to say you do exactly what I did and it will work out for you. You'll be able to open it. Let me try and open a PowerPoint and see if I can drop the image into there and it'll recognize it. It's strange that the whole preview shows up on the computer. Yep, it does. All right, so I think it has to do just with my user files on this computer because I'm not always here and it's not my computer. So if you were in space planning, when you go to put your final elevation in, you don't want to see the sky and you don't want to see the grass. You just want to see the image itself. So you're going to do a crop. And you want to pull it over to as far as where the wall starts, which is right here on this side. And then on the other side is right here. And that's your full elevation space. And then we'd crop it about the top and the bottom too to not include the grass, and that would be finalized. For this week, I'm okay with it coming in as the best cropping you can do from SketchUp because that's all we can do. And we're just testing out the export usability of making JPEGs to use in presentations. So get it as cleanly in as you can, but know that for a final presentation, we don't want to see the grass and the sky. All right, let's look at that homework again. So that was the first one JPEG elevation of your space. Parallel projection has to be on, and the camera view has to be set correctly. Number 2 is export the AutoCAD drawing of one of our spaces. So one of these files from SketchUp, camera, standard view, top view, we just want to try importing it into our AutoCAD. And we want to try our elevation of it. So instead of drawing the elevation of the bathroom, if I've got it in here and I actually go back to my standard view right with parallel projection and I get it all sized up and I say File, Export, and I will say dun dun dun. We'll see. 2D graphic. Oh my goodness, I was so scared. And AutoCAD drawing file, and we'll go and we'll put it in our famous folder, and then I'll export it. And the audit's done. That means it went through. AutoCAD said it's okay. I should have saved it as something like small bath. It'll open up. We just say continue opening, just like you have problems with my file, and boom, it has a drawn elevation for me that it's done for me in SketchUp. Now let's talk about this elevation. It's not so pretty. It's definitely not as pretty as it was in SketchUp, right? So here's this, and I get all the shading and da-da-da. But it does have enough that I didn't spend hours getting all this detailing in here. So you could copy and paste and splice together a number of amazing drawings by using just things you want to use from SketchUp. And a lot of the time, I'll grab things like I'll just open a new drawing and I'll go into the warehouse and I'll say, I want an elevation of a bed. I grab a bed, I put in an elevation, and then I bring it in and I make a block in my AutoCAD. So you can see how helpful it is for making some pretty intricate blocks because they might have full walls and signage and all types of things that you don't have to learn how to draw or take the time tracing in AutoCAD. Is your mind blown yet? All right, so we do see though it's a little ugly. So it's your responsibility to make it less ugly. So if this makes sense and that's pretty, but then we say, okay, it should have another line in here to represent the basin of some type. And then maybe this gets continuous space on the side. So it looks more like the reality. Now this one came in really clean, but a lot of times it'll be ugly like this. This isn't necessary. I way deduct off points for ugly where you're not taking the time because you didn't have to do the time that it takes to build this object. So you should at least take the time to clean it up because it saved you about 3 hours by doing the work for you. Don't get lazy. Technology isn't made to let us be lazy. It's just made to make us more efficient. So delete out all the ugly and connect the points until you get a good, clean graphic representation that would be easy to color and hatch if you had to, and work your way around and clean it all up. So that's pretty awesome. So the next step though, this is step 1. I created a new untitled file. I'm gonna copy it because I want it to go into Professor King's class because it'll save me and it gives me extra elevations than what I already had, especially if I chose a new space. So I could have a 3D and an elevation all at once. Paste it into my Professor King's class folder, and here I have a nice elevation in the file. That's what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for you to send me and Professor King the same files from now on out, and it should always have the tabs you've created so far for every single drawing at the bottom, and it should have all of your layers in it. Keep sending us the same file and build on it going forward. So you need one of these copied into your file. You need a JPEG that you've saved as a JPEG. I just have to show it in PowerPoint because it didn't work since I'm not a normal user on this computer. And then our last piece is you need to create a scene to make orienting back to an elevation easier and label the scene elevation. What that means is you might be frustrated by a lot of things in SketchUp. You might just love SketchUp, but sometimes the frustration is when you have a big model, it's like you get lost and then it's like, oh, I just want to get back to this toilet. Or you get stuck in a wall like you saw me do a couple times this night and you like scroll, I'm pushing forward and I never get back to where I want to be. We do have the zoom extent. So it's like, oops, I got in a wall. Zoom extents, quick out. Don't keep scrolling through like I did. That was bad practice. Or we have adjusting a scene. So if I maximize the screen, I come down over here, I see there's scenes. If I want to have an easy access to my elevation, right now I'm in parallel project. That's why this is so ugly and such a weird shape. But if I want it to be in that standard view right, and I want to work on my elevation and have it easy to put materials on, I can create a scene once I get in this view and I have it exactly how I want it. So I always want to return to this. I hit plus a scene and I could label it by double clicking on its name or right clicking because it's special. Rename scene. And we're going to call it, let's call it, it doesn't want me to rename it. No matter how much I right click, rename. It pops up right there, but then it goes away. I like that I am encountering these issues. Oh, I know why. I'm not down low enough. Classic. All right, so that's perfect. This happens every year. All right, so I said right click, rename scene, scroll down, and the name's down here. So you got to get way down there. Include animation. It should let you click in the name part. There we go. So I clicked on the scene 1 part and then type, what do we want to call it? Elevation. If this is the only elevation I'm going to have, small bath. So, Nor, go ahead. What? Not about the class. Nope. I do, but I wouldn't give it to you on my own time. Elevation. I know, but not until my class is over. All right, and then enter. Okay, so it's right click, rename, then click this to get into the caption, and then after you write the name, you hit enter on your keyboard. This is a lot harder than it used to be in reality, but we have a scene now. So then if I go woo, and then I double click over here, bam, it puts me back where I want to be so I don't have to waste time doing anything else. So it felt like a lot of setup, but now that we got it, it should be okay. So let's say I wanted a perspective like this. First off, I need it to be parallel projection off so that I'm back into normal perspective. And then I could say add a scene, and then I could do right click, rename. There, it was nicely ready for me. How great. And I'll say perspective, small bath. And enter to confirm the change. And now I could go elevation, perspective. And that's pretty great. All right, so that's really a good portion of your homework. The last piece is this finishing the exterior office. And we're going to use the modeling warehouse. So I want you to copy this text, actually copy just the exterior office items to bring in. And if I am in edit. Okay, items to bring in. I know it's missing the S. In fact, I'm going to delete this part to make it even easier on your mind. So it's just that exterior office items to bring in and save. So if I come down and I take my cursor and I don't select the brackets and I Control C and I go into my SketchUp model, but not this one because this is the room. So I can close out of this at this point. I'm going to open up one of your files. Hold on, I have to hide my screen to do it because I'm going into the grade book to do it. So if I open up one of your outdoor offices, I think it's Noor's. Can you see it? You should be seeing the office now. Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, so I've got her office and I go into the warehouse and I've copied from the homework the text and I control V and I enter. It'll bring up my model. That's me before I was married. I was Allison Davenport. And so you can download and say yes it directly in to our model and it'll bring in all this stuff. Now all this stuff includes a door and a window and a kitchen, and we just need to explode our group so that we get smaller units, just the door, just the kitchen. The kitchen can just be rotated with our rotate tool and moved into that back corner point. So if I go to move it about its edge, I gotta bring it up onto my patio. I could kind of bring it over here first. And then once I get it on a wall, I can scoot it down. And we know if I brought it into perspective, from perspective into elevation here, it would help me scoot it and see where I'm ending at the wall and if I'm on the ground. So camera, standard views, front, we'll zoom extents out. So it looks like that would be, I want to say left. So camera, standard view, left there. And then parallel projection. And looking at it, it looks okay. If I move my hand over, I think it was ground level. It was level with the patio. And here it looks fine. So we can turn off our parallel projection and that's placed. Now, what about our door? We want to get that in the right spot. A finished one is gonna look like this. I'm opening it. This is my old student Heather, who you hear me argue with in the old videos. She was also my SI. We had a lot of fun. And this will get this is a completed model, as in like she completed it for the boathouse project to match the interior of her house. So she has this. She got rid of her little kitchen in here, but other than that, you can see the door handle should be going this way, and the window fits in there, and the roof is going to snap on top, and it all works out. Now, two of her walls are off, so you can see how she did all the interior, and she really went to town. But we're not doing interior this week, but I wanted you to see this door handle going to this side. So if we open up that other SketchUp model that Noor has, you're going to find out that the door doesn't happen to fit perfectly and you need to scale it. So we want to rotate it. And if we just hover near it with it selected, or you could select it first and then rotate, probably be simpler. Pull out till I get a dash, pull over. I think you can type 90, enter, and it'll do a perfect 90, or you can pull over till you see the other dash, and then we can move it into place about its corner, not about its box. So if I grab its corner and I snap the corner into place here with this corner, I can see it's pretty much fit in there. It's just a little bit shy on this side here. And that would be something that I would have to scale to make it fit better. One thing that we could do is we could hide portions of the wall to scale something sometimes. So if I come here and I get in this group and I double click to get in and I right click and I hide the first wall and then I right click and I hide this portion of the wall, I can see my door more clearly in order to try and snap it into that edge further. So if I needed to scale it, I can see my scaling point and then it snaps. So then I could turn my walls back on. And if you go into view, you're like, I hide a lot of stuff, but where does it go? You go into view, hidden geometry. You can see with this little hatching what's hidden, and then you can unhide it by selecting on it, right click, unhide. And now I can see that my door is fully touching that wall. So I don't want to see the gap. I want to see it in place. You might have to scale the window. And you have all these other pieces. We have a fancier column if you want to replace your columns so that they have bases on them. And then we need a roof, which we don't have here. So we're going to go back out to our homework instructions, and we're going to copy the text, load into your model to complete. You could type it as well. I just think it's faster if you don't know what you're going to copy. And so we come into Nora's drawing, and we go to the SketchUp warehouse, backspace, and we can download it. Yes, directly. And we want to put it on our columns. We can kind of, I'm scrolling with my mouse. So I'm scrolling in and out. I can use the center click to rotate around in space. I can always grab my hand and go left and right, but the center click is what gives me the most mobility in space. And I could kind of snap it about the columns, so get my columns centered underneath it. Since we created our own columns, they're a little bit different than those ones that came with our newest models. But if I move this over, I could say that looks pretty good. What's that look like over here? Well, it seems like a better point would say this is where the house would end if I got it in the right spot. So what if I instead move it about this corner and snap it into place? Now look how that was kind of like a false reality. If I really wanted it in the corner, I had to rotate to see it. So make sure everything's snapping to the actual points so you don't get points off. Now I see it's too high, so I'll have to move it down. So I could start moving it down by clicking move and coming to this point right here where it connects and snapping that to that guy in there. Now I see everything looks fairly good. It looks good all the way around except for this column needs to be moved, and that's a fine change to make this week. So if your column is off on this side, then we're going to move it over so that it meets with the roof in here. And I just did a sideways move, and now it looks nice and clean under there. But that means on the floor here, we want to get rid of any ugliness that was created with these pieces. So we could delete any extra lines at the base where there wasn't like a column base created and get rid of it. And really, I'm just going to say, let's swap our columns out so we can get that cleaner base. And because they're grouped, it's not that bad. We can just move them right into place. We had where this had been, so we could snap it into that endpoint, and then we could move it over. But it looks like we'll have to scale it up a little bit. And so that's what this is an exercise in. It was creating an exercise in scaling models that you bring in yourself. All right, and then delete all of the junk on the ground. But it's a pretty quick fix, okay? All right, so that's it. That's all for the homework this week. I know this is more like notes to myself about how to import and export. So just the improper importing and exporting equals 15 points. The layer management is 15 points. The SketchUp 3D warehouse, utilizing it to bring in objects, that's 25 points. And then you have the creation of views, and then you have finishing off an exterior. So that's your points and all the instructions to go with them. I have a few people who wanted to stick around or just do stick around. So like if Ashley is here, let's see, she might not have added. Yep, Ashley's here. And then there was one other person. So the rest are free to go unless you have big questions about SketchUp, which is fine. Who's my other one?
It was me, Jada.
Oh, yeah. Make what yourself? Nope, you bring it in. It'll say in the video if you missed it, okay? All right, so let's start with Ashley because hers is a sadder issue. I looked into it and at first I asked you if you had a Dell, so then I did the HP, and maybe you looked for it already. I wouldn't put it past you, but it seems like it is a graphics card driver issue, which could be controlled by getting deep enough into your computer information. So like someone said they got so far in, where is it? It was up a little bit higher, and they were able to fix it. So they had the black screen, a graphics card, it says check in the 3D application settings. So even though you don't have a Dell, it was the same information that I got both times, that you might just need to set it and everyone says it corrects it. So I haven't encountered this before, but how could we correct it on your computer? Can I share your screen?
Yeah,
Ashley?
that'd be fine because I've tried to look at that graphics card and I don't know what I need to do to fix it because I
Okay.
pulled up that part of it, but
Is it the NVIDIA or the AMD?
see, I don't know. It doesn't go into detail. It
Okay.
just it's kind of I don't know.
I'll try it. I'll try it on your.
Okay,
I sent you an invite.
let's see here. Okay, there it is.
And then for you, Jada, there was, let's see if I have it pulled up somewhere else. I had another one that said this one, select tool lag issue on Windows 10. Do you have Windows 10?
I think so, yeah.
So it said, this is the SketchUp community. So that means it's reputable and they were trying to correct the issue under this question. And it says, we've seen issues on Windows 10. The tool has lag and a potential fix that doesn't apply to 2017, only in 18. Please download and run the script to apply the fix to 2018. And so there must be, please run that, and like there must be updates somewhere. So I can look into that a little bit more, but it seems like they have downloadable additions for people who are running off a Windows 10 platform to make it run quicker.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want to look in the background for like this issue, so I would Google on tool lag SketchUp script to see if it can take you to that downloadable file.
Mm-hmm.
But it is reputable because I can see the blog is coming from the SketchUp community, not from Mike Wazowski.
Yeah.
Okay, Ashley, so I want your mouse. Can I have your mouse?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I'll try.
You have to give it to me. So it's underneath the go-to meeting and then under the screen tab between audio and webcam. And then it should say, once you get in that tab, a drop down that says share my keyboard and mouse. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So let's see. They were calling it the application. Check the NVIDIA control panel. So AMD Auto Detect tools application to try to detect the model. Blah, 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 blah. Do you know what your platform is? Is it Windows 10 too? Or Windows?
No, I don't know.
Catalyst control.
I know it's pretty new, but I'm not for sure. I got this computer last year, brand new, so.
Sad babies.
Yes, she's teething, but actually your whole presentation she was having a screaming fit.
No. If yours is teething, mine will be teething then too.
Yeah. It's
He is-
lovely.
Well, he has double ear infections right now, so he's pretty great.
Fevers.
I don't want to search this though. I want to search your computer. So maybe I'm just. Nope. NVIDIA. Okay, so graphics settings. I like how everyone stayed. You guys can go. I mean, maybe they're having the same problems and they just haven't let me know yet. But yeah, you're right. It's not like an obvious thing. I feel like my husband would be the guy to figure
Yeah, I
this out.
stayed up and I tried over an hour to figure it out without texting you, and then I was like, well, maybe she'll know, and then obviously it was kind of late, and
Let me search on my computer because I've got two screens. So let's say it says, I'm going to mute you, Ashley, if it's okay.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay, let's see. So it says control panel 3D application settings. Find 3D application settings on PC. And you said you have an HP. No. Let's see. Yep, HP. On a HP computer. Right-click the Windows desktop background, not the start screen. Select NVIDIA control panel. All right, so right-click. Oh, how silly is that, Ashley? All right, then it's right there. Okay, so if I go to, hold on. I'm losing it. Where's your screen? Okay, so I've got to minimize this, and I got to right, not that. No one wants your math homework. Right-click, Intel graphics settings. 3D. Okay, so use application default settings. Use application defaults. Applications with default 3Ds. No application found. Let's browse. Is your... Okay, I'm gonna guess. Actually, I'll just unmute you. Do you know where your SketchUp's at? Is it on your desktop? Like, do you have an access? Yep, there it is. Okay,
Yep,
so
yep.
if we go to Documents, this PC, Desktop, Firefox, it doesn't even recognize it. That's really strange. So if I'm in Intel HD graphics, okay. So SketchUp 3D for Intel HD graphics. Nonetheless, when disparaging Intel graphics, or girl, or boy, girl. It says, will SketchUp run correctly? I have reviewed SketchUp. And it says, thank you. Well, I wonder if there's a way to like see what your graphics card is doing. One, it doesn't even notice. Use driver settings.
Yeah, I pulled it up in the preferences settings in the SketchUp, but it doesn't like give me much options to do anything with it. I don't know how I'm supposed to fix it or update it or.
Okay, I'm just gonna do this and then we can change it later if we want to, okay? So global setting application optimal mode disable. Okay. Oh, you have 19.
Oh, am I not supposed to have 19? Is that the problem? Maybe.
That might be part of it. Although this is interesting looking. Oh, well, because it's 19.
Yeah, I was also wondering why you had a girl and I have a guy. I'm like, is there a setting that she changed it to a woman or? Because I only
Yeah,
have guys.
yeah. If you could, just uninstall, and you still paid for your license. It shouldn't matter if you uninstall. We had a girl in class do it, and it worked out for her. Sam, she did 19, uninstalled, and then got 18. But we want to be working in 18, which is what it said in the original file stuff.
Oh,
So,
man. Okay.
yeah, it doesn't look like it. Because I heard something, that's what Cheryl said. She goes, well, did she accidentally have 19? And I said, I don't know. And she said, that's been giving people trouble and lag because it's just so new. I don't know. I mean, I could try and look more into fixing this, but I don't know if like how different the tools are and all of that kind of stuff. Let's
Okay.
see. It shouldn't be a big deal though. Like you won't be charged more to download this and download 18. It will just should work to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Intel black screen. So here's this forum. It said, did you try updating the graphics drivers? Does the computer also have Intel graphics? Blah, blah. That's too smart for us. Change the graphics requirements. Each version of SketchUp installs separately. Go to the control panel. I left my global settings on auto select. On the program setting tab, I set the SU as customize. So right click, Intel graphics settings. And we went into 3D. And global settings on will enable, and then applications, and we'll apply. Yes. And then application settings says use application default setting. Go to control panel. I left the global settings on auto select. On the program setting tab, I selected SU as the program to customize. NVIDIA users at least have a convenient shortcut. Try clicking the SU18 desktop icon. Huh.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have Windows 10 uses Intel 64, and that would have mattered. Like that could be a thing too if you hadn't downloaded the right bit for your computer too. But did
I
you
think I have
check?
64 for my computer.
Okay. What you been posting? SketchUp, window preferences, graphic card details. So, yeah, I think our best bet is to,
Uninstall and
yep,
reinstall.
do 18. And I think it'll be helpful anyway for the class because it'll be confusing maybe later on.
Okay.
Give it a
Yeah,
try.
I didn't even not even notice that I did the 19 versus the 18. Like I didn't remember picking. I just kind of was like, oh, yep, this is gonna be it.
Someone said they were forced to download 19, but like someone who had already had a license years ago and then they like went and it expired and they were forced to download 19. That just doesn't sound right. So maybe it had it up on the screen for you like as the option, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it
and I
should
just
be.
went with it.
When I sent it out though, I had like a very specific email where you click on it and it takes you to where you download from, like a long time ago when it was like, make sure you download SketchUp. So you shouldn't have any other options. Like it walked you through how to get right where you need it to be.
Okay,
So
so go back to that one, and
yeah,
is it like a link I can click on and it'll take me to it?
I think so. I'm gonna have to think
Okay.
about if it's in the class or in an email that I sent. Anyone know? Look at all these people who stayed. Crazy people. They must have questions. I don't know. Or they're just hanging out, pretending to be there. Um, yeah. I'll look and I'll text you, okay, by tomorrow.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay. Talk to you later.
All right, thank you so
Okay.
much. Bye.
Jada, did you find it?
Yeah, I found it. Like, my dad's kind of helping me because he's like a tech person.
More
But
tech savvy?
yeah. And like when I click on it to like go download it, it won't let me download it because of my virus protection on my computer. It
Does it?
says that like there's something bad with it and it'll destroy my computer.
Well, then we're not doing that, and you're gonna live with the lag.
And so I literally was like, I'd click it and then I sit there and wait for like 20 minutes. Or not
Was
20
it
minutes, 20 seconds like for it to select it.
was it from the actual SketchUp? Like if you go to sketchup.com,
Yeah,
SketchUp.
it's I typed in exactly what you told me to type in. And it's the SketchUp community one
Let me see.
with the
So it
Tide
was
underscore S.
lag. So it's select tool lag script fix. Let's see. Forum sketchup.com. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't
So
know. I don't know if it's just the virus thing I have on my computer, but
we've seen this tool slow. Let me see. I'm gonna try it on Ivy Tech's computer, and they get a virus too bad. All right, let's see. So, just kidding. It's being recorded, so I have to say that. All right, please download the run the script. Click on SketchUp Pro 2018. Blah blah blah. Slow selection workaround bat. I don't know. Let's see. Dropbox remove. This resolved my issue quickly. Thank you. I mean, it's so scary that it says, and then it's like, do you want to do it? I don't want
yeah,
to
mine
advise
won't
you to
even
do it.
do it. Like
It
it says,
just won't let you.
yeah, it says we will not run this.
Hmm.
So
But it did work a little bit to close down other programs while you're working.
Yeah, I closed all my programs and it was a little bit faster, but they still like when I go and do the drag select or whatever, it like does not record it. So
It sounds like it must be a graphics card kind of thing. Maybe your dad's smarter than I am, but he could be. I'm not a computer person. I'm just a drawing person. So I use the software on the nice computers at school, but
well, I'll just try to see if this will download and if he can get like the virus like off of it.
okay. Are
And
you
then
near
if it
campus
doesn't,
or are you totally remote? Like you're
No.
all okay.
I'm all at my house. I have a whole setup.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry I don't have any better things. That was my best thing.
I'll see if he can get it to work. I'll let you know.
Okay. Lillian, I saw you and then you disappeared. Did you want to talk?
No, I was trying to figure it out because I just got this computer like 2 days ago, and it should be a really nice, well, not, so it's a gaming computer, but just the regular gaming computer. It's an Asus,
Yeah.
and as soon as I loaded the AutoCAD on it, it started lagging. And I don't know if, because they told me maybe if I pay $75 more to make it faster, and then it said something to do with my graphics card is not enough for AutoCAD. And then when I got the options of something to add on, I didn't know my way around it.
Okay. Do you want me to look at your screen?
Yeah, I switched to desktop and I don't know what I'm not doing right. But yeah, then
Okay, I'll change. I have to send it to you, so you should get an invitation for.
okay,
I see your desktop, so you can try opening CAD, and we'll see what. Nor, what code do you want? Okay, I gotta find it, but I'll tell you to come back in a second. So just even takes a long time to open too. Okay. Running object snaps to find even. Oh no, that's the information. So then, does a message usually pop up at this point, or when you start drawing?
so everything just lags. Even when I loaded it on here, the first thing it said was something to do with the graphics, and it brought me to, let's see, AutoCAD. Something to do with a graphics card. But then when I try to find my computer, let's see, AutoCAD. And my system is Intel. So I don't know, I'm not technologically gifted. So I don't know if I'm supposed to download this, but when I click on it, it just brings me to.
So
I
it
don't know if
says Find recommended hardware. Yeah, it's a driver. Yep, you're supposed to download it. It's a driver.
Yeah, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find this particular driver. I found other things close to it.
Sorry.
Oh. It would be this one.
Yeah, then click on it. I don't know, it's being weird. Sorry, I'm also talking to someone in here.
Oh, no, it's fine.
And then there should be another, so this driver, you will need to uninstall the driver. It says, this means if later, okay, so keep scrolling down. This download is valid for blah, blah, blah. So was it supposed to start on its own? I'm gonna check this again. Turn away. I think.
I don't know. I was thinking of taking it back to Fry and telling them what I want and see if they can.
I would. They're better than me, but it should have just started downloading when you got into it. Sure.
All right, that's fine then. I'll take it to them and see what they say.
I'm
Meanwhile,
sorry.
keep lagging. It's fine.
I'm
I'll
so
go.
sorry.
Okay, and I just bought it. Nothing prepares you to buy an expensive computer in a few days.
No kidding.
Anyway. All right. Thank you.
Sorry. You're welcome, though. All right. Have a good night. Well, I hope it gets better. I hope they figure it out for you.
I
Keep
hope
me
so.
updated.
I will.